Joe, as we go in a month away from, by the way, the start of the season, camp starts this week. Your boy will be out there on a Wednesday to see his first football of the fall. It's going to be really fun. But, Joe, as everybody continues and starts football camp, mainly for everybody this week, what are some of the bigger storylines that you're watching going into camp this fall?
The first thing that I always really focus on and lock into during fall camp is which young guys are going to emerge as impactful players. And I think there's two buckets that we talk about with this, Blake, is the true freshmen stepping in that can end up being phenoms, maybe not to the extreme degree of what Jeremiah Smith did this past year, but who can be a Ryan Williams type guy, who can be a Cam Coleman type guy. The guys that are on my radar right now, we talk a lot about what, say that again?
Jeremiah Smith, sorry.
Well, I was just saying that the guys for this upcoming year that are on my radar are DeCorian Moore for Oregon. We've talked quite a bit about him, and they need him to play well after they lost Evan Stewart to injury. Justice Terry, maybe he's as good as Colin Simmons was in his first year at defensive tackle. Dejon Lee from Alabama is somebody who's been already making waves. And then Will Black might need to step in and be important for Notre Dame's offensive line with what they just suffered with Charles Jagasaw. But the other bucket that I look at is some of these redshirt guys that haven't played yet or maybe played a little bit. What are they going to do? And I'm talking about two that come to mind immediately. CJ Carr for Notre Dame, if he ends up being Notre Dame's starter, and Julian Sain for Ohio State. Who is going to cut through the noise and really, really prove themselves as maybe some of the best freshmen in the country?
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. And listen, the easy grab here, and I'm going to do this in just a second, the easy grab is the quarterback position. Joe, Ohio State being one of them, I think we all think it's going to be Sain. What's going to go on at Notre Dame? Okay, listen, a lot of these programs that made significant runs in the playoff a year ago, what did they all have in common? They had at least somebody that was a second-year starter plus. You think of Riley Leonard. Well, he started before last season. You think of Howard. I mean, he was a multi-year starter. You think of Drew Allar, who was in his second year of starting. You think of all of these different quarterbacks who had multi-year starters. Well, the thing now is when you turn the page to next year, it comes to a part where what are some of these young quarterbacks, Texas with Quinn Ewers, what are some of these quarterbacks and young quarterbacks going to do? I put all of them in the bucket because I think as much as you look at the conferences and you look at different teams, Joe, I think the biggest storyline in all of this is I do think that the quarterback play a season ago across the board was down. The problem in that is, Joe, you had, 6 quarterbacks drafted at the NFL draft literally the year before in 2023? Quarterback play was going to be down because you had 7 first-round picks. J.J. McCarthy was the last pick that went off the board to the Vikings there. So you get, or Michael Penix, whatever it was, you get to a place where you had so many quarterbacks a year ago in 23 that when you went into 24, you had a lot of people that were coming back. The SEC's got a lot of returning starters. But I sit here at Ohio State, Notre Dame. I sit here with other teams such as Oregon, Joe, Alabama. These aren't small name schools of what we're going to get. You have brand new quarterbacks, but I bring it down to 2. Joe, I do think that the Notre Dame quarterback battle is one of the more intriguing ones to me with CJ Carr. I think it's the underlying rule that I think he's going to start. Why would you? There's got to be some form of process that they would have gone and gotten another guy from the portal, a team that's been very active in the portal, if they did not truly believe that he was the dude. There's no way you, at least at some point, that you can't convince me, and then Angeli leaves. But not only that, I think it's 3 main schools that were deep playoff teams a year ago. It's got to be Ohio State. It's got to be Notre Dame. And, Joe, it's got to be Arch Manning in Texas. Those are the 3 biggest storylines for me coming into the season. Everything else will be everything else. If you don't get good quarterback play, it doesn't really matter. But it's the thing here that all 3 of those quarterbacks, whether it be Carr, whether it be Manning, or whether it be Sain, Joe, they were all insanely talented. And so the point of all of this is I'm putting all 3 of those, and you could put Dante Moore in there, I guess, if you want, but he did play some at UCLA. those three are the biggest storylines in the country for me from a national perspective. Because, Joe, if those guys are who we think that they can be, well, then they're going to be playoff teams again, regardless of what we think.
Right. The reset at quarterback, I think, is always something that like really, really catches my attention. And there's a lot that's going to look different this year. The runs that we had for some of these teams in the playoff, and then I think the way that you framed that, where 2 years ago we put out such a deep group of guys that went in the first round, and then it was an overall pretty deep quarterback class. This upcoming year, I did an interview today with Eric Galco of the East West Shrine Bowl. He handles the roster for that, and he leads that on the A to Z Film Room channel. And he stated that he thought that this year was one of the deepest that he's seen at quarterback, because there's just so many different options. A lot of guys that started last year, a lot of guys that were highly recruited at one point. There's just so much talent. And it's not just the seniors. It's not just the rising juniors. There are some players who we've already mentioned here that are going to be redshirt freshmen or sophomores that had a little bit of talent, but now get the chance to start for a full season. So, yeah, right. I really want to hear is like, do we get a glimpse of somebody's like popping off? I think back to when Drake May ended up being as good as he was. I remember starting to read a little bit of like, hey, keep an eye on this guy. This guy might end up being phenomenal during fall camp. And then he bursts onto the scene and has an amazing sophomore season. So you never know who could end up being a name. There's always a chance that somebody totally random ends up being fantastic. So yeah, I'm always keeping my eye out for that. But Joe Burrow is a fantastic example of that.
I mean, literally. I mean, yeah. So when we talk about there's no bigger storyline outside of quarterback. So again, we'll see. But for me, just to wrap that up, Joe, if Notre Dame's a back-to-back playoff team, okay, even an expanded playoff, none of that matters. Joe, CJ Carr's got to hit. I mean, like you got to have good play from him. You play too many tough opponents this year and teams that Joe, A&M going into year two under Elko. I mean, they're not a slouch of a team. Like, you can't just roll over and let them rub your belly. Pause. But for real, I mean, like, they have done some really good things, so we'll see. For me, Joe, the biggest storyline for me is everybody looking at Georgia and not giving them the benefit of the doubt. Meaning, what are they going to look like on defense with all the replacements that they have to have? They've recruited at a very high level. Gunnar Stockton comes in at quarterback, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day of what another first-year starter looks like. Joe, it's so crazy to me that we look at Georgia last year and everybody said they had a down year. The number one strength of schedule last year, they had 2 losses. Okay, sounds good. They lost 2 games the last 2 years before that combined. They only had 1, by the way. They've lost 3 games in 3 years. They are replacing a lot of pieces defensively. Kirby brought up at SEC Media Days, listen, we're very young on defense. There are going to be some early tests in this season. Now, in week 3, they play Tennessee, and let's see how that goes. Joe, I'm very intrigued by the University of Georgia right now because we expect them to do good and be good, but they are replacing a lot. And I think that they will be based off the way that they recruited. But I got to be real with you. I don't think people are talking about them enough. I really don't. We look at them and say, hey, Gunnar Stockton, we don't know what to believe with him. Is Mike Bobo any good? Brother, you do realize of the guys that will play in the front 7, 6 of them are top 50 recruits. 4 of them are 5 stars.
Yeah.
Like, you're not rebuilding, you're reloading. So I get what some of the things Texas has done to them in recruiting recently here in the very near recent past. But, Joe, they got a lot of talent. And I think for me, it's like every time people talk about the SEC, it's, Lenore Sellers, there's a lot of buy-in in Alabama. Garrett Nussmeier might win a Heisman. Arch Manning's going to win the conference in year 1. Is A&M really going to be that physical? I don't hear anything about Georgia.
Well, and it does make you wonder in a situation where we're not hyping him up as much, or other people aren't hyping him up as much, and they're kind of just assuming they're in the pack of the top teams, but not separating themselves like they usually do, does that mean it sets them up for big success? Does that mean that they're going to be using that as motivation? I smirked when you brought this up because I couldn't help but think, well, we've been hyping him up. We did our preview and we talked about how we think that this Georgia team
we're different.
Exactly. They have the structure, they have the team, they've got the recruited bodies to come out swinging. And I do think at times, I know that there's been some like key veteran leadership on those teams where they won national titles, but they also did have some tremendous young, high 4-star, 5-star guys that completely dominated. Like Jalen Carter, he started to get his first look at time on the field, and he started smoking dudes. Just like was unbelievable and impossible to block. So there's always, with the amount of talent they consistently bring in and how effectively they evaluate, there's always somebody big coming up next. And it kind of goes in line with my initial storyline of, who are the guys that we're not thinking of that are freshmen and redshirt freshmen that could end up being superstars in college football and then in the NFL.
Well, I think the big thing is because of how bad they looked offensively a year ago, and then Gunnar Stockton and his first start going up against it. I don't think Gunnar Stockton gets any benefit of the doubt. None. He's gotten none this offseason from anybody. Like, he had to go out there and damn near be perfect for anybody to give him a shot here. I mean, it's not fair to him that he's going up against a national title contender at the end of the year, and that's his first start. It's not fair to anybody. I mean, what did you expect from him? Now, Jelly went in there and did some really good things when he was called upon, but Gunnar Stockton led them to beating Texas in the SEC championship game. It's not as if that he was a slouch here. So, listen, we'll see with Georgia, but it's my biggest storyline from hey, man, they won the conference. I feel like everybody's writing them off. I guess we'll see.